There we go. Thanks for hopping on with us this morning and kind of sharing your story. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what brought you to Scire Integrative Health Center?
It was a long path. Wasn't a really straight reason why we started. Just going through a lot of behavioral issues with my son and going through a psychologist and trying to figure out different ways to best help him. Went down a few rabbit holes and came across the Melillo Method and found his the Melillo podcast and was looking into Dr. Melillo and then started looking into who was on the podcast with him, and that's how I found Dr. Scire.
Nice. Nice. So there was some behavioral issues with your son, and you were interested in kind of having those addressed.
Yeah, he'd been diagnosed with ADHD, ODD, and OCD since he was, I think he got a diagnosis when he was 4 or, yeah. It was causing major issues at school. He was in a behavior unit most of the time, really limiting um, his social abilities. Wasn't getting invited to a lot of things. He was always kind of the one getting in trouble. And then just trying to figure out how to, like, the stuff that he was on, the doctors had put him on medicines and everything, and none of that seemed to be working either. So it was just kind of a constant trying to figure out what would help him.
Okay. And once you started working with Dr. Scire, what was your experience like?
Well, that was great. The difference between Dr. Schuyler and like the things we'd done before, it was all kind of they kind of diagnose kids with different conditions and things and then prescribe these medicines. But even that, they don't know what's going to work. And so it's a lot of trial and error. So you're playing with a lot of really powerful drugs with a lot of long-term side effects, and they're kind of figuring out as they go. With Dr. Schuyler, it was, this is what's wrong, this is how we're going to fix it, and this is how long it'll take. It was very defined. It was either he was right or he was wrong. And it was there's no medicine. So it was like, it's not the treatments and everything was just exercise and hand-eye coordination and stimulating certain parts of the brain. It's not like a pharmaceutical drug that's going to get in your system and be there for 3 months if you stop taking it or not. And then that it wouldn't have any, and they also have huge ramifications on development and all that. So it's a very safe like process, and he has a very definite, this will work or it won't kind of thing. So it's definitely worth trying.
That's amazing. And what sort of changes did you notice, and when did you start noticing them?
Well, when we started, since it was kind of, this is what it is, this is how long it'll take, this is what we're going to do, we quit taking the prescribed medicines right when we started seeing Dr. Scire, because I wanted a definite, it was kind of like the process to figure out how to help your kids with that kind of stuff. You don't know how to start and don't know what options there are. So we went down when everybody goes down to the psychiatrist and they put them on different ADHD medicines and things like that. So it was kind of a long process of me learning and figuring out. So this was kind of a starting over. We're going to start this without any medicines and do what he says and do our best. And so it was, when we started it, we went in and you kind of treat, like with Melvin, it was kind of really good we kind of treated it like a sports training kind of thing. He's big into sports. And like I said, most of it's a lot of core exercises and things like that. So we kind of treated it kind of like training, and he kind of took to that a little bit more. And I didn't even realize it at the time, but after about a month, apparently the medicine had been affecting him pretty bad. And I think it was affecting his moods just in general. He didn't ever feel good. And I don't think he knew that he didn't feel good until we took him off of it. And so he started getting more energy, started doing that. And it was a good 6 months of doing our best to do the regimen, which isn't easy. It's a very hard process. It's kind of like going to the gym, like as an adult.
Right.
It's kind of that same kind of process. It's hard to stay on, like, consistent with it. But we did our best with it. And then after, I'd say 2 months, you could start seeing better interactions with kids, like with his cousins and things that he was already real close to. And then, by Christmas, he had gotten a lot more. He was able to have a lot better relationships or interactions more consistently. And then by March, he was back into a regular classroom and meeting academic goals, participating in sports, and not having big issues if we like handling hard situations a lot better, interacting with his friends and parents and adults a lot better. And then this year he's back into a regular classroom. That was kind of like one thing we know when we started, when he would get out of the car in the morning. That's kind of an example. The teachers would like say, hey, look, like give him a good morning, that kind of thing. And he would just kind of ignore them and walk, wouldn't look at them, wouldn't acknowledge them, and just walk. And now he's, no matter what kind of mood he's in, I mean, he still has bad moods, but he'll stop and turn and acknowledge them and say good morning back to him. And it's a little thing, but it's a big difference, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. And how does he feel now that these changes have been made? Do you notice a difference in how he feels and how he's carrying himself?
But yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of, he was 8 when we started. No, he was 8 when we started. And so it's kind of at a period where I don't think kids, it's kind of at a transition where they're starting to get peer pressure and starting to have, I guess, reputations and that kind of thing. So it was a real critical time. But he's come around this year where we're having, like, he's starting to get his feelings hurt some and caring what other people think. And it's kind of, you don't want your kid to overthink it, but you also, if your kid doesn't care at all what other people think, then he's not going to fit in, and you want him to fit in. So he started to like deal with his kind of more normal situations where I think he's gotten teased some with his height, I guess, and that's kind of upset him and kind of caused him to be motivated to do something, like to try harder at different things. But his reactions to it has been a lot better, where his feelings get hurt now. And before, it would have been he'd have picked up something and hit the kid or tore up a classroom or something like that. So it's a lot better, kind of normal childhood now than what he was on path to going through.
Right. He's able to process his emotions even if they're not happy all the
Negative,
time.
yeah.
He can sort through them and manage them.
His reaction to negativity or something he doesn't want to do or doesn't want to happen is a lot more consistent with that you'd want. It's a lot more less confrontational, I guess.
Well, that's great. That's great. I'm sure
Yeah.
that makes it a smoother transition for everyone in the house and in school.
Yep. And he is, like I said, he's back in a gen ed classroom. He still has an IEP, but they've gone from having a pair sit with him to just kind of looking in the classroom every once in a while.
Hmm.
I think it's just to transition him off. I don't think he'll be on it next year. And his first report card, we were making like C's and D's last year. Now we're making A's and B's.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And he still doesn't like school, but it's kind of a different reason. He'd rather do fun stuff, boy stuff than last year, where he just didn't want any. It was just a different kind of environment, I guess, for him.
Yeah.
But it's turned around 180 degrees.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great to hear. If you were to tell any parents that were considering getting with Dr. Scire and doing the home program, what would you let them know?
Mainly that, like, anytime with childcare, it's kind of, I didn't know anything whenever we started seeing issues or anything. And throughout, it was probably a 4-year process of dealing with psychiatrists and listening to doctors. And I'm not saying like some of those treatments didn't work. I mean, don't work or are not important. I'm just saying there's options there to do before you go pharmaceutical medications like Ritalin or Concerta or any of those things, because they'll start putting them on some really hard drugs, and the side effects and long-term effects of them are very serious. So I'm not saying that it's never the case that those are needed, but it's kind of, to me, looking back, I don't see how they prescribe or diagnose a 4-year-old who's developing with a lifelong condition. And so there's options you can do and try before you get to that point. We did a genetic test. That was another thing that I think has an impact on it. We found out he was what does he call it? A variant where he couldn't process folic acid. We started giving him methylfolate vitamins, and it seemed to help his mood. Well, just like a genetic test is one option you can try. A blood test to see if they have any allergies to red dyes or glutens or milk, eggs. I mean, there's a whole range of things that might cause issues you're seeing, as opposed to just going to a psychiatrist who's pretty much going to say, we're going to try this drug and see how it works, and then we're going to try this drug and see how it works, and we'll taper him off this one and put him on this one. And all those are just so long and drawn out to do it the way they need to, because put them on one, and it'll be 3 months before it starts before they say it has effect, and it'll take them another 3 months to get off of it before you can try a different drug. So there's just so many options you can try before you get to that point, because that's going to be you have real impact on a kid's development and growth, and like it's a very serious diet. I mean, the prescription, I guess, to put a kid on medicine. And at that point in their life, I think there's a lot of things you can try before you get to that.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I wish I'd have known before, is that there are options to try. And the psychiatrists are all backed up. It takes 8 months to a year to get in to see them. And you feel like you have to do it or they're going to drop you and you won't be able to get back into them. And it's just, you feel pretty helpless whenever you start down that route, and especially since there's not a lot of information out there other than this is what you need to do, and that's the pharmaceutical route, I guess. But
So
yeah,
is Melvin off all of his pharmaceuticals now
yes,
after the program with Dr. Scire?
yeah, we took him off the week we went and had our initial visit, and he hasn't been back. He's taking methylfolate vitamin and a B12 vitamin every morning. That's it.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yep.
And so what would you tell any parents that were considering working with Dr. Scire?
I would definitely do it. I mean, the worst case is that it's not covered with insurance, but best case it works. And because there's nothing that has any kind of effect or it's mainly core exercises, light, and I guess sensory stimulation to activate one certain parts of the brain. And it's you have to be consistent, and it's not easy, but there's no side effects to it. There's no long-term effects to it.
Negative effects.
Negative effects. Yeah. Yeah. Negative effects. There's definitely long-term effects, but also it either works or it won't. And there's no gray area. Like it might, that I saw, I read his book, Dr. Melillo's books helped a lot, getting familiar with it. And it's very, very straightforward, and like what to look for. It helped a lot, like, going through it to be prepared to what to look for, how to handle things a little better, and then what to do if you're having some rough times, how, like, let's go do the brain driver for a little bit and see if that'll help out. And also with the effects it has, because that was one of the surprising things and interesting things, was the primitive reflexes and what happens after you work those out in the milestone stages. Like Melvin never wet the bed before, and then 2 months in, he wet the bed. And that was kind of one of the things with the Melillo Method, I think it's Reconnected Kids book, where it tells you, like, if you miss milestones, or if your child misses a milestone, and you start this process and you start activating whatever brain has a deficit, that you'll go through those milestones then,
Right.
and to catch up. So that was like really helpful, being able to have that book to, like, okay, this is supposed to happen.
Right.
And
Where you think
it's
it's
also,
possibly a negative is actually a positive.
yeah, because I think that's part of it. Like the terrible twos, if they never go through that, they're going to go through it.
Right.
And so if you might have some really, like, worse behavior for a little bit, that is actually positive because you're going through that milestone then and catching up. So it's been just a complete game changer for us.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. I love it. I
Yep.
love to hear the success stories, and I really thank you for hopping on and sharing your story with us, and, possibly helping some other parents out there to know that there's options.
Absolutely. And I'm very, like, passionate about it and trying to get it put into, I've talked to our special needs program, trying to get them to maybe try some of it, put it in, like, at least the core exercises or things like that with their behavior kids and autistic kids and things like that, just to try it.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's no medicines, there's no long-term side effects, negative side effects, there's nothing that's harmful.